So hello, everyone, and welcome to the 2022 Clean Communities Annual Conference. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Joanne Jamenden. I am the Executive Director of the New Jersey Clean Communities Council. I want to thank everyone for joining us today, and I truly hope that next year we will all be saying our hellos safely in person. Before we begin, I would first like to extend my appreciation to our conference sponsor this year, Wawa. Oh, I just lost my, hold on one second. Okay. Wawa has been a supporter of a great many Clean Communities programs over the years and has provided donations to our Kids Day events. During New Jersey's recent transition away from single-use plastic bags, Wawa gave away 270,000 reusable bags to their customers throughout New Jersey. We will actually hear more from them later, but for now, thank you, Wawa. I also want to remind everyone that 3 Clean Communities certification credits are approved for today. I know that's why many of you are here. 2 certified recycling professional credits and 2 certified public work manager credits have all been approved. Also going to remind you that this is being recorded and it will be available on our website, njclean.org, probably by the end of next week. And I will be sending a follow-up email and certificate to everyone. And a final housekeeping note, before we begin, we will only provide a brief Q&A after each session if time allows, but please make sure to post your questions in the chat as that will be monitored. So let's get started. Our annual program will be kicked off today with a message from both our federal and state partners. It has been a while since the EPA has been a part of the Clean Communities program, so I am proud to share opening remarks from Lisa Garcia, the Regional Administrator for EPA Region 2. Ms. Garcia is an environmental lawyer who served under the Obama administration, working for New Jersey's own Lisa Jackson, and has advocated for climate justice for more than 20 years. Lisa?
Good morning. I'm Lisa Garcia, Regional Administrator for Region 2 at US EPA, covering New York, New Jersey, Puerto Rico, the US Virgin Islands, and 8 federally recognized tribes. It's a pleasure to be able to speak with you today at this year's Clean Communities Conference. I want to thank our hosts, the New Jersey Clean Communities Council, for organizing this webinar. I also want to acknowledge my friend and colleague, New Jersey DEP Commissioner Sean LaTourette, whom you'll hear from very soon. Sean and his team have been essential partners, and I'm really excited about our ongoing work together. At EPA, everything we do is centered around protecting public health and the environment. And a big component of that is making sure that the well-being of the communities and the people we serve, from tackling climate change to environmental justice, are protected. More than ever, the solutions to our most pressing environmental issues will require robust partnerships between the federal, state, and local governments and the communities, like yourselves, the community organizations and NGOs serving on the front lines of all of these challenges we face. Today, EPA works with governments and community organizations to better protect the environment by providing funding, technical support, and partnerships on key environmental protection initiatives. For example, EPA has been a proud partner with Clean Communities Council on the Clean Streets, Clean Streams campaign that works to ensure litter on our roads and highways and waste are removed. Programs like this recognize that litter is not only an issue of quality of life, but also creates significant environmental hazards. We must recognize that litter on the street ends up in our waterways, in our water systems, eventually to our rivers and our precious lakes, and even drinking water systems. Ensuring access to clean and safe public spaces and parks is not a matter of recreation only. It is a necessity. There are significant public health and social benefits that result from experiencing outdoors and enjoying the outdoors. Research shows spending time outdoors improves health outcomes, fosters deeper community social connections, and overwhelmingly increases emotional well-being. At EPA, we believe everyone has the right to enjoy a clean and healthy environment, regardless of race, income, or geography, or what zip code you grew up in or live in. Ensuring a sustainable, clean community and addressing these challenges in New Jersey means partnering with New Jersey DEP to protect the state's wetlands and coastal estuaries and developing green infrastructure solutions that help us better absorb and manage the increasingly more common heavy rainfall events, sea level rise, stormwater, increased stormwater events. Commissioner LaTourette and I recently visited Hackensack, where they were working to complete a long-term multi-million-dollar project to increase stormwater protection and storage capacity and reduce the frequency of flooding and combined sewer overflows. The Biden-Harris administration, through its landmark bipartisan infrastructure law, has made a historic $60 billion investment in the EPA and different programs that will ensure that the health and safety of our communities is protected. The money will go towards our most successful programs with a proven track record, many of which are programs with state, local, and community partners. I look forward to the journey and continued collaboration with the Clean Communities Council and all of our partners as we work together to build a safe and healthy environment for all of our children. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa, for that message of support. New Jersey Clean Communities certainly hopes to be involved with the Save Our Seas program down the road. So I look forward to our continued partnership. Up next is someone who certainly needs no introduction. Not since 1986, when New Jersey became the first state to mandate recycling, have we been at the forefront of so many environmental initiatives. I am confident because he is at the helm of the NJDEP. While the commissioner had his own event to attend to today, he was gracious enough to send a message about this year's Clean Communities grant funds, which we all know that's why you're here today. So I give you an avid supporter of the New Jersey Clean Communities program and our friend, Commissioner Sean LaTourette.
Hello to all of our clean community partners throughout New Jersey. I'm Sean LaTourette, the state's Commissioner of Environmental Protection. We all know that litter tends to gather in lots of places, but at the Department of Environmental Protection, we are determined to help keep our communities, roadways, and waterways clear of litter and debris, and to help beautify them throughout the state. So this year, we're happy to distribute over $21 million in Clean Communities grants, nearly $19 million going to more than 30 municipalities, with over $2 million going to more than a dozen counties. This increases our distribution by more than $700,000 over last year. And these dollars can be used to fund actions from volunteer cleanups to promoting education and enforcing anti-litter ordinances. Grant dollars can also be used to purchase reusable bags to help New Jersey residents get past plastic. All of these actions help to remove litter, beautify neighborhoods, and improve our water quality across New Jersey. Even if it is simply by eliminating litter, often from roadways or around stormwater collection systems, we are making the spaces right where we live cleaner and healthier. Litter can get blown around by the wind until it is trapped somewhere, can harm our wildlife, and distribute microplastics throughout our waterways. And people tend to litter when an area is already littered and when they lack a sense of ownership or community pride. What we know is that community-level efforts can have far-reaching impacts across the state, from local streets to wildlife habitat areas. And I'm so very pleased that this year we're providing more funding to help our partners enhance the quality of life in their neighborhoods. Your efforts, have helped to beautify our state, to reduce litter, and help New Jersey get past plastic. So let's keep working together, keep litter in its proper place, and help beautify New Jersey. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. And I'm sure everyone's takeaway from that great message was there's more money coming. So by the end of today, hopefully it will be posted on njclean.org, everyone's new grant amounts for 2022. But now we're going to kick off our program. Trust me when I tell you, I know everyone is zoomed out. But I kept that in mind when I was crafting today's agenda. Gateway to a Litter-Free New Jersey. The name is simple, yet purposeful and intentional. I will remind everyone that New Jersey already has the model program to combat litter. I think that gets lost a lot of times. We are the state that other states turn to. We're the only state in the nation that has a tax on litter generating items that is given back to local governments to fund their litter abatement programs. So we ask, why 30 years later do we still have a litter problem? Why have personal responsibilities been thrown out the window? Literally. So I wanted today's session to be especially impactful and to resonate change, to inspire reconnection with our litter abatement roots. So our panelists will motivate you with their experiences, inspire you with their passion, and certainly empower you with their creativity. All of these are model programs that you can emulate and fund with your Clean Communities grant dollars, regardless of your budget, and all will make significant impacts on the litter in your community. So first up, the mayor of Belleville, Michael Melham. Mike was born and raised in Belleville. He's a graduate of the Belleville Public School System and was elected mayor of his hometown in 2018. He's a firm believer of a better Belleville and is an entrepreneur investing in the prosperity of his hometown for many years and has his own government communications company, Alpha Dog Solutions. He's here today because he's committed to a litter-free community, launching municipal green fairs, litter cleanup programs throughout the town, especially along shopping corridors and waterways, going back to a litter-free New Jersey, right? So Mayor Melham is a change agent, which certainly speaks to why he was just re-elected mayor earlier this month. So congratulations. I'm sure his message will inspire you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. First of all, I just want to say greetings from Belleville, New Jersey. We are indeed the cherry blossom capital of America. And I definitely want to thank the Clean Communities for having me here today to kick off the panelists. As you heard from the commissioner who referred to a theory that Belleville operates under, you have to understand that the program, the initiatives that we've been undertaking here in Belleville are really rooted in what's called the broken windows theory. While many of you probably know this theory, I'm just going to summarize it in just a few short sentences. It's basically an academic theory that used broken windows as a metaphor for disorder within neighborhoods. And that theory holds that visible indicators of disorder, such as vandalism, loitering, and yes, litter, to broken windows actually invite criminal activity. And it further proposes that the prevalence of disorder creates fear in the minds of citizens who are convinced that an area is unsafe. And when they feel an area is unsafe, it creates fear in their minds, and they withdraw from the community. This withdrawal, and you heard the commissioner mention about community before, this withdrawal actually weakens the social controls that keep crime in check. This process begins, it feeds itself, disorder causes crime, crime causes further disorder and crime, and it all leads to a more significant crime. So while we talk about the broken window theory, I know today we're here talking about litter. We've taken that same exact approach in Belleville as the broken window theory and have applied it to litter. It's very interesting because as I believe that blight is contagious, and if you see that throughout Belleville, where we saw certain areas that were blighted, especially in our main arteries and our main gateways into Belleville, that sometimes is contagious, but you know what else is contagious is beautification. And that's something that Belleville's really stepped up in the last 4 years or so. We believe that blight is contagious, but we also believe that beautification is contagious. You heard the commissioner reference it before. As we get more and more people to buy in to our community, the more beautiful a community is, the less likely there is of people that are willing to litter or leave litter on the street if and when they see it. So we've taken a lot of our main intersections and certainly our main arteries, which are gateways. We are nestled in northern New Jersey, so we border the largest city in New Jersey, Newark. So as you come out of Newark and into Belleville, we want to make sure that one, there's a place where you can see it's beautiful. Our main intersections, the corners have planter boxes on them. And that's something that we've engaged our green team with. The green team was probably established about 11 years ago in Belleville, and prior to 4 years ago was non-existent. They didn't do anything. So that's one of the first community stakeholders that we engaged was our green team and said, how can we beautify our intersections? Because if we can beautify our intersections, we're going to have a lot less litter. We're going to have a lot less crime. We actually took this really far. So it really isn't about walking around and picking up litter, although we do that. It's actually about beautifying our neighborhoods. So using those planter boxes was just a great idea. The second idea that we came up with was, again, thinking about gateways and main arteries into our township. We have a mural. We decided to put a mural in a area that was really distraught. This area was littered with litter. It had garbage cans that were overflowing. It had weeds coming out of the cracks. And we felt, again, if we can just beautify that. So we now have a Welcome to Belleville mural that spans about 4 blocks. And that mural has really caught hold, whereby it was contagious in the area. You now see adjoining property owners and adjoining business owners buying into this concept. We want them to be stakeholders in the community, but we have to lead by example. A lot of times government is really quick to fine somebody or issue a warning or issue a violation or issue a notice of some kind. But we felt here in Belleville that we had to lead by example, whether it was the reenacting of our green team or a visible indicator in Belleville on our main street, which is where Town Hall is now. It's called Washington Avenue. In the spring, summer, and fall, you will actually see members of our DPW walking up and down the street, picking up litter. It sounds basic, but I could tell you, I've been out there with these men and women, and when residents see it, they sit at a red light and they honk their horn, they wave. Our residents, and I believe all residents of communities such as ours, really do like the fact that they see their government acting. We can just walk around and pick up every single piece of litter, and we'll do that. But the most important thing is to get that community buy-in. So as our residents sit at those intersections, as our residents sit at a red light, and they see the beautiful planter boxes, and actually right now, for where we are in May, they're just starting to sprout and they're just starting to flower. And then they see DPW walking those streets. It really is contagious. Litter is less likely, but now you have shop owners and property owners that will come out every single day. Some of them do it twice a day, morning and evening. They'll come out and they just sweep up right in front of their store. It's contagious, and that's something that we need to have the community, the business community to buy in. We also then invested in garbage cans. Every community has garbage cans. That wasn't anything earth-shattering, but we saw that because of the garbage cans, the shape that they were, the traditional waste paper basket, the wire baskets, we saw that a lot of people would come out of their apartments and just dump household trash in it. And then it would overflow, and when it overflows, litter happens. So what we did was we put caps on them. We got brand new garbage cans. We put caps on them. And those caps actually mean you have to insert, trash or waste right directly into it. And it's really changed a lot because now we no longer have huge bags that are taking up the entire waste receptacle. We have DPW that also cleans those. It sounds like something that's basic, but when you really factor out that it's not just about having a receptacle, it has to work. And if it doesn't work, or if it leads to more litter, you're actually being counterproductive. We've also taken the initiative to take 2 quality of life inspectors These quality of life inspectors are proactive. They are not responsive. We have property maintenance inspectors that do respond to long grass and litter and such, graffiti, all the things that really comprise the broken window theory. But these two inspectors are proactive. They start every single morning by going out and finding areas of disorder, whether that's litter or whether that's a storm drain that's maybe covered or closed off. So what they do is they go out proactively. I actually joined them. This past Monday, I was in the car. I sensed a couple different areas of town that needed some support and needed some help. I've gone out with them. I've rode through with them. I do drive-alongs with them. We've also then engaged our new garbage contractor because we found that as a new garbage contractor came in, he had dumpsters, again, for commercial districts or for apartment buildings or condominium complexes. He had dumpsters whereby there were no lids on them. If there's no lids on them, guess what? Garbage, trash can blow out. It also leads to rodent infestation. So by engaging these stakeholders, whether they're our municipal green team, whether it's our shop owners, or whether it's things like our garbage contractor, by utilizing these, it's not just about getting somebody to pick up the litter. It's about changing the culture. So first of all, our residents see that the township is bought into this. We've engaged those stakeholders. They're doing a great job. And when people see the success and when people see the beautification that's happening, they are absolutely less likely to do so. We want homeowners and we want the business owners to be able to address their own litter. Much like a Adopt a Highway program, we have people that adopt storm drains in Belleville, but they also adopt their corners, whether that's making sure the fire hydrant works. But really, it's about, for me, it's all about litter and it's about weeds. Those are two things I hate. I hate litter, I hate weeds. But since we can't be everywhere, we've actually utilized technology as well. So I'm going to conclude with the fact that it's not just traditional grassroots. It's not just about having somebody go pick up the garbage or engaging the business community to maybe sweep up in front of their stores, but we've also deployed technology to help us. On our township website, we have a feature called Report a Concern, and we constantly encourage residents to take a photo of either graffiti or litter or disrepair. That photo actually has a geotag on it. It comes directly into town hall, gets routed to the right department, and immediately somebody is dispatched. The community loves this because they get updates every step of the way. So somebody can say, well, I've been complaining, Mayor, about this litter or about this graffiti for months. Well, now we can geotag that photograph and we can track it every single step of the way. They absolutely do love it. Some of the other property or stakeholders, I should say, that we've included have been the Scouts. We do not one, but we do 2 different community cleanups every single year. And that's great because you're getting youngsters involved in the community early, and they're seeing the elected officials, the administrators, key stakeholders in the community out there side by side with them. We recently did Main Street, which is a main thoroughfare along Route 21 here in Belleville. And again, to me, when you come into a community, you have to keep special attention to what we consider those gateway projects or those gateway entrances. I hate coming off a highway, sitting at a light or a stop sign and seeing grass or seeing litter or weeds in the center median. So I'm going to conclude with the fact that this year, we do think that we're getting really close to launching our Adopt the Median program, whereby the main arteries coming into Belleville, as you sit there, not only will they be beautiful, not only will you see DPW and other stakeholders cleaning them, but we're going to have the business community involved in a sponsorship so that we can actually make sure that every single artery into Belleville looks clean and free of litter. And that's really what we've been up to in Belleville. So I thank you for the opportunity to present here today, and I'm looking forward to the rest of the seminar.
Thank you so much, Mayor Mike. That, as I expected, was very inspirational. I think that contagiousness starts at the top. They're simple messages, but effective, and definitely will reduce litter in your town. And it was on point with our message for today. So truly, thank you.
Thank you
Very much. And I promised, and we're keeping with the promise of providing you with some innovative but practical litter abatement program ideas. So get those pads and pencils ready. I can't say enough good things about our next presentation from the town of Westfield. They produced an amazing video PSA to announce New Jersey's reusable bag program. I can tell you they have the best recycling convenience center in Union County. They have the most robust green team in New Jersey, and they have yet another award-winning program they're going to share with you today. Their town administrator and my friends, always, and thank you, Jim, is going to kick off the conversation about their Adopt a Storm Drain program. Over to you, Jim.
Great. Thank you, Joanne, and thank you for your kind words, and thank you for having us here today. Again, I'm the town administrator for the town of Westfield. Happy to be here. I have with me a very dedicated and active member of our green team, Lois Kraus. And we've had a green team for 13 years, but as Mayor Melham even mentioned, never more active than they have in the past 5 years. And that's really been a great thing for Westfield. So we have a lot of programs we do in Westfield. What we're going to share with you today is a program that we started a few years ago called Adopt a Drain. It was mentioned previously. We have a little detail here. As a side note, we'll put into the chat our website information and our email for questions about this program. But we, like a lot of communities, we're a larger community, 31,000 people live here. And we get a lot of requests, mostly for DPW action. And many of them are clean my storm drain. It's clogged, it's overflowing, but a lot of the action that can be taken is basically something people can do on their own and could assist the town. And it was mentioned by Sean LaTourette, the commissioner, about taking pride in your town, protecting the waterways, taking neighborhood pride. And this program, we think, is leading to that. So let me share my screen real quick, a quick little PowerPoint for you to see, if we can see this. So again, our Adopt a Drain program, Lois Kraus and I are here. The main reason for this program, besides relieving some public works work if we can, is protecting the waterway. In our case, the Rahway River watershed from pollutants that flow from Westfield's almost 3,000 storm drains, and potentially causing flooding in neighborhoods and areas of town. And we'll hear about it in a few minutes too. But with almost 3,000 storm drains, as much as Public Works would love to get out and do this work regularly for the storm drains, this is not possible with all the other obligations Public Works has on a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly basis. So any help we get from residents is critical for us to help to clean the town. I'm going to show you a quick video. It's only 2 minutes, so don't freak out about how long it is. We have some amazing actors in this video, including Lois. And this is the reason for showing you this. This will be produced to market our program. It was a very collaborative effort. We work very well not only with the Green Team volunteers, our elected officials, as well as our Public Works department and others and residents to make sure that people understand what the video is all about. So let's watch it real quick.
The Westfield Department of Public Works and the Green Team have partnered up in the Adopt a Drain program. This is a great supplement to our 3,000 storm drains here in town, and we're grateful that the Green Team has taken this initiative.
The process is easy, and every adoption makes a difference to keeping our local rivers and watersheds clean. Just follow these easy steps. Step 1, find a drain. It can be on your street, around the corner, or near somewhere you frequent.
I adopted a drain by my house because every time I ride my bike, I notice it's clogged.
Step 2, log on to the New Jersey Adopt a Drain website, select the drain you want to adopt, and name it. Step 3, clean your drain.
So let's see, I've got my rake, I've got my shovel, I've got my little sweeper, I've got my pail, I've got gloves. Lots of us have these lying around these days. I think I am all set.
But if all you've got is a pail and gloves, you can still get the job done. Step 4, finally, track your impact on the Adopt a Drain website.
Did you know that there's almost 3,000 storm drains in Westfield? So even though the DPW sweeps our streets twice a year, they can still easily clog with debris, garbage, and leaves, particularly after a big storm. That's why we'd love your help to keep our storm sewers clean. It's really easy to do, and it'll make a huge difference. You'll prevent localized flooding on your street, you'll prevent garbage and pollution from entering our watershed, which affects our rivers, and ultimately you'll be helping the town look and be cleaner. So please sign up today. We've had a great response. We have nearly 100 residents who've already signed up. We want a whole lot more, because like I said, we have nearly 3,000 storm sewers in town. So sign up today and help Westfield be greener. Thank you again for your support. Go Westfield, go green.
Okay. Here, there we go. Okay, so our amazing video, but that was to, again, promote the program. I want to turn it over to Lois Krause now. You heard in the video, one other thing that mentioned, that we started this program, first engaged the company in late 2019. We launched the program right in the beginning of the pandemic in 2020, in the spring, summer of 2020. So at the time this video was shot, you heard the council member on there talk about 100 registrants. And I'll pass off to Lois Krause, one of our active green team members, to give you some details about our program, where we are today and where we're going. Lois.
Thanks, Jim. And I did see somebody asked what was the most common pollutant in our storm drains. So this is showing that really we get the bulk from sediment. Although it does depend on the storm drain, different ones will have more garbage, others will have more leaves, but the sediment is what's so heavy, and really with all the fertilizer and dog waste in it, that's the most damaging, we believe, to our water quality. So I do want to highlight that the 2,749 storm drains, that does not include county drains that are in our area. So when you upload your file to Hamline University out of Minnesota, that's who we use as our administrator, that only included the storm drains from our town that are designated as Westfield. We do have 170 unique adoptees at this point. And these are the people that have actively logged into the tool. What I have observed anecdotally, but also been told to me from neighbors, is it is infectious, to jump off what the mayor had said earlier. So people will say, well, I'm cleaning my storm drain, but I don't want to log onto the tool and put my name there, or I don't want to log cleanings. So I would say that the number that's formally on the tool is probably half, if not a third, of what's actually being done in the community. The tool does give you recorded cleanings. It tells you how long it takes to clean them. And in our first 2 years, we have done a lot of training with scouts. We've done training with schools. We have our high school promoting it for extra credit. And you can also get Sustainable Jersey credit. We did that as an innovative project. Next slide, please. From an administrative point of view, it's easy to get set up as long as you have a flat file that you can send to Hamline. That's easy. So we got it up and running within a matter of weeks. It was just getting somebody in Jim's staff to identify the file and send it to them. And then whatever administration you're going to put toward it. I'm the administrator right now. This was actually my Rutgers Environmental Steward project initially. And I put in, probably could have put in more, but I put in several dozen hours a year on it. Initially, we did take all of the material that they gave us, and Hamline has lots of wonderful social media material. They deal with all the initial emails, follow-up emails. They have door hangs, and we did customize it for New Jersey. So the bulk of the work would be relevant to any community. And then we did a little bit of branding with our watershed and our name. You saw the video. a lot of public speaking and youth training. And I want to give a shout out. I think Heather Miara is on from Union County. She was our watershed ambassador at the time. I strongly encourage you to work with your local watershed ambassador to help you with promotion. From an ongoing basis, the kinds of promotion that we do, I know Berkeley Heights does the same. We've had contests, give us your best storm drain name. We gave awards to those who cleaned recorded the most cleanings and the most amount of litter that they cleaned up. And if you're curious, our winning storm drains were named LeBron Drains, Drano Malfoy, and Stormy McDrainel. And then what I also do is monitor statistics. So if somebody has accepted a drain, but they're not recording cleanings, we nudge them along. Next, please. In terms of lessons learned, a lot of education we had to do to explain to people that sewers are not the same as storm drains. So people will say, why do I pay a sewer tax? Why aren't you cleaning my drains with the sewer tax? So we had to clarify on that. As the video highlighted by Councilman Contract, there's unrealistic expectations of how often a street sweeper can clean drains. It takes about 6 weeks in our town to make a pass through. And in the fall in particular, it could be within days that a drain is clogged again. So we really need our residents to help out. We have definitely seen increases after rain events or localized flooding. Again, you'll get more people, because it is infectious, to start cleaning if they see you doing it. I know in my neighborhood, I started cleaning all of them, and then people said, okay, I'll take on this drain. Make it fun. And then the last thing I'll leave you with is Hamlin doesn't care how big the upload file is. So you could do this at a county level. I'm hoping someday we make this a state level project so we can have it sort of like Recycle Coach. And there's contact information for me. I'll put it in the chat. I'll also put in the Instagram account from Minnesota for Adopt a Dream.
Thank you, Lois. And again, thank you, everybody. We did put our website in the chat, as well as the Lois' email address. And again, just thank you for letting us share this program. One of the questions in the chat I did see is, where do people drop off their material? We actually have a very robust conservation center where we take organic debris recycling opportunities, so residents can bring the debris to our center. And you saw in the video, you can get a large bucket of debris, 5-gallon pail worth each time you clean a drain. So, but we have the luxury of a conservation center. So, but thank you again, Joanne, for letting us present.
Thank you. I just want to remind everyone that Clean Communities grant funds can be used to promote this program, buy the supplies, pay for training, and even to cover the administrative costs to Hamlin. And we'll provide some of that information. We're going to add that to our best practice information on njclean.org. So Lois, I will be reaching out to you just to get some info. And before we move on to the last speaker, I'm just curious what the feedback was, Jim, from some of your residents, how they responded to this. I'm sure it was like an interesting mix.
It's always an interesting mix, Joanne. Yes, residents who are involved in the program, as Lois mentioned, it's actually many more than are technically signed up on the portal. We've gotten a very good response. We've also gotten, as you might expect, the response from some residents who want to know what they're getting for their taxes. Why should they have to do this? Which is a normal response, but it is growing. It's infectious. One last thing to mention. We have like many towns do, an app you can use to report DPW related items. It's called C-Click Fix is the company. We actually call it Westfield Connect in our community. And we've been seeing that we get a lot of requests for clean my catch basin, clean my sewer in front of my home. So of course, Public Works will go out and do that, but we're educating the public on each of those responses we send. We actually give them the information for our Adopt a Drain program so they can learn about our program and sign up. But a very good response overall, and the residents who are involved in the program are very excited about it.
Well, I love it. As you know, I'm a fan of Westfield. I'm a fan of this program. I did note that Mayor Mike from Belleville also mentioned they have a program, so I think it's amazing, and it's once again on point with Gateway to a Litter-Free New Jersey, because we all know that litter is important to the value of just the economics of our towns throughout New Jersey. So thank you. Don't go anywhere, but we're going to move on to our last speaker for session one. This is a long-standing program that hails from Salem County and just hasn't gotten the credit that it deserves. I travel a lot of New Jersey's highways, and I constantly see items flying out of open bed trucks. I kid you not, one day on Route 1, actually a whole pile of 2x4s was laying in the middle of the road, which nowadays I know how much that's worth. So if I had a truck big enough, I would have taken it. But this program really is the cure-all for all of that unintended litter that creates both an eyesore and a safety hazard. So I give everyone Salem County's Clean Communities Coordinator, Florence Beckett. She's going to tell you why she's on video and not here in person.
Hi, everyone. I'm Florence Beckett, Salem County's Clean Communities Coordinator. I'm sorry I can't be with you in person today, but I'm currently winging my way to Aruba on a trip that my husband and I have been trying to take for about 2 years. Thank you, COVID. Salem County has over 354 miles of roadway, and we are the southern link to the Jersey Shore, Delaware, and points north. So we get thousands and thousands of cars and trucks passing through. Not only that, but since we're a rural community, many of our towns bring their trash and recyclables to convenience centers as opposed to having curbside pickup. That means that many times the trash is brought to the centers via pickup truck. This pickup must have a tarp covering to prevent the litter from blowing out all over the road. What many residents don't know is that this covering of solid waste transport is a law. The fine for not using a tarp is $2,000. And in addition, if your vehicle is overloaded, leaking, or spilling, you are also subject to a $2,000 fine. We here in Salem County want to help our residents in every way we can. So we've developed the Keep It Covered program. Funding from the Clean Communities Grant is used to buy cases of 8x10 tarps, and a supply is kept at our convenience center. Every time a load comes in without a tarp, the resident receives one free of charge. Also, at the very first Clean Communities Coordinator meeting of the year, each of our municipalities receives 2 cases to keep at their convenience centers as well. Grant funding also pays for the printing of our Keep It Covered brochure. This brochure outlines, you can see it, it outlines the program, it describes the law, and it gives you information on the fine, and it has some useful information about the county's convenience center. The Keep It Covered program goes a long way to help keep litter off of our roads, to keep them beautiful. Thank you all for your time. If you have any questions or you want some further information about the program, you can reach me at 856-935-7900 extension 16. Thank you.
Can't believe Florence was able or had the ability to actually give you her phone number. And I'm sure she's missing us in Aruba. But that is such a fabulous program. Keep in mind, Salem County does have their own landfill. So they're able to monitor who's coming in, and that's probably a critical component of this program. Before we move on to session 2, I think there's one question for Jim or Lois. So Carol?
Yeah, the question came in, are the individuals who adopt the storm drains given a mini grant?
No.
Given a mini grant? No.
It's all volunteer.
All
right?
volunteer. Yeah, no grants are going, but they're all volunteers. And we ask that they track their information on our portal, but they don't have to.
Thank you.
Sure.
So I'm going to move along to one of our favorite topics here at Clean Communities, which is marine debris. I am grateful to have Allison Jones, the Watershed Program Manager at Clean Ocean Action, with us today. Clean Ocean Action is a nonprofit organization based right here in Long Branch, New Jersey, the home of my favorite beach. And Clean Ocean Action is dedicated to improving the marine waters off of the New Jersey and New York coasts. Allison oversees the biannual beach sweeps program, which we all participate in, as well as the Rally for the Waterways initiatives. I usually say quality over quantity, but in this case, quantitative analysis from Clean Ocean Action is unprecedented. So Allison.
Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction, Joanne. And I'm so excited to be here today speaking with all of you. Hopefully I am a familiar face to some of you. So hello to those Clean Communities coordinators that I know and that I work with on beach sweeps. So let me get my PowerPoint set up. All right, wonderful. Okay, so as Joanne said, my name is Allison Jones. I'm the Watershed Program Watershed Program Manager for Clean Ocean Action. And I am going to be talking about our beach sweeps program, but a little bit of background first about who Clean Ocean Action is. As Joanne said, we are based in Long Branch and we are committed to improving the water quality off of the New York, New Jersey coast. We've been around since 1984. And our goal is a clean ocean, so achieving marine water quality that is good enough to protect sensitive species at sensitive life stages. And we do that through action of an organized and educated coalition of all different stakeholders, including participating businesses, municipalities, organizations, and concerned citizens that are all committed to the goal of preventing ocean pollution. And the New York, New Jersey Bight is this little area that we focus on, the little sea in the big ocean. It is the area from Montauk Point, New York to Cape May Point, New Jersey. And as I believe most of us, if not all of us, are New Jersey residents, I don't need to describe the many reasons why we as human beings love and value and appreciate our ocean right here off the coast. We all love the Jersey Shore for recreational value, for its intrinsic value, and for being a place of refuge, a place of joy and fun and family time for many of us. But it also provides economic benefits to our state. So the Jersey Shore is a $32 billion tourism industry. So that's why we care about it, of course, as Jersey residents and as people, but then we also have to think about all the marine wildlife that benefits from a clean and healthy ocean as well. And that's really, to Clean Ocean Action, this is what we are really focused on, and the benefits to all of us as humans are an added bonus, right? So we have countless species that are either full-time residents or pass by this very unique New York, New Jersey Bight little slice of the Atlantic Ocean on their way migrating north or south, depending on the time of year. So that includes sea turtles and whales and dolphins and seals and hundreds of different bird species that we, of course, value and want to protect. So just a recap of why we care about a clean ocean, and neither people nor wildlife benefit from beaches that look like this. And I think we all pretty much at this point understand why. We know that plastic litter especially can be harmful and lethal to a lot of wildlife, whether it's through entanglement or ingestion of larger pieces of plastic, and then also microplastics. So the plastic debris out in the marine environment does not break down in the way that, let's say, an apple core or a piece of paper even might. Microplastics just degrade into smaller and smaller and smaller pieces until they are so small that you need a microscope to be able to see them. And the challenge and difficulty with that is it becomes even more difficult to remove microplastics from the marine environment. So we can't really do a beach cleanup and remove those microplastics. And then they also become even more ingestible to even more wildlife. So even at the scale of tiny little oyster larvae, those filter feeders are actually able to ingest microplastics because they do get so small. So they're entering the food chain at even more levels now. And then, of course, we're able to ingest them as human beings as well. So that's a very good reason to be concerned about plastics in the environment. And then lastly, there's the connection to climate change. So driving home the idea that plastics are a fossil fuel product, which inevitably means that they are contributing to greenhouse gas emissions in our planet and contributing to climate change. So I know many of you are very familiar with how all of this debris ends up in our waterways. So Clean Ocean Action does tons of education, and I loved hearing about the Adopt a Storm Drain project, where you're explaining to people the difference between storm drains and the sewer infrastructure. We do a lot of that as well. So non-point source pollution, of course, is all this pollution that comes from not just a single point of origin, but it's carried from land, it's people pollution. All the things that we do on land are eventually carried into our waterways through stormwater runoff. And it's understanding this connection that the more impervious surfaces that we have, the more stormwater runoff we get, and therefore more pollutants, including litter, enter our waterways. And up until recently, Clean Ocean Action was based in Sandy Hook. If you're familiar, if you've had the chance to get out there, it's a wonderful place to visit. But what's interesting about Sandy Hook and all of the Jersey Shore really is that we are downstream of this, which is one of the most densely populated and most developed areas in the entire world. So non-point source pollution is taken to a whole other level, considering the fact that we're downstream of this densely populated area. Not to mention just New Jersey as a whole, right, is also pretty densely populated and very developed. And along with these older cities, especially Manhattan, we get combined sewer overflow issues as well that impact the Jersey Shore. So we have quite a multitude of factors that make dealing with marine debris off of the Jersey Shore particularly challenging. So what does Clean Ocean Action do about it? And I think many of you are DPW employees and folks that are very familiar with this stuff. So I won't take the time to explain all of this, and I'll get into what we do about it. So our ultimate goal as an organization is to reduce litter in waterways. And we do that through either preventing new sources or eliminating existing sources. And this kind of middle section here are all the tools in our toolbox that we can use to achieve those things. So we have laws and ordinances, we can encourage personal behavior change, we can implement infrastructure fixes, enhanced enforcement, and ultimately remove the debris. But to do all of those things and to do a lot of the advocacy work that we do, we need data. And Clean Ocean Action runs our beach sweeps and some other programs, including our corporate sweeps and some work along the Delaware River to generate all of that data, which is then used to advocate for all those different tools, for laws and ordinances, for enforcement, for infrastructure fixes, et cetera. And we can't do our beach sweeps program without citizen and municipal engagement. So I'll tell you a little bit about our beach sweeps. I know many of you are already familiar. The beach sweeps began in 1985, and COA organizes them twice a year, every April and October. In this past season, in April of 2022, we had 70 locations in 8 counties, and you can see all those pins on the map to the right are the locations that we had. So there's even some in North Jersey and along the Delaware River. All of those locations are coordinated by volunteer beach captains, some of whom are here today. I saw some familiar names, and they manage the actual day of coordination. So Clean Ocean Action does all the logistical work on the back end, and then it's our volunteers that actually run the cleanup on those 2 Saturdays. And then we also engage youth with our junior beach captain program. So over the course of 36 years, we have engaged hundreds of thousands of volunteers who have committed many, many, many hours to reducing marine debris and tracking all of the debris that they collect, which has resulted in us collecting and removing over 7.9 million pieces of debris from the Jersey Shore, which is, of course, wonderful, but also, pretty shocking that there's that much debris in just 2 days a year for 30 years or so, 7.9 million pieces. And we know all of that, all of those great statistics from the use of our data card. So all of the volunteers at our events become citizen scientists or community scientists, as we're calling them now, because we ask them to track all of the data about what they're finding during the cleanup. We update this as needed, particularly when we feel the need to capture data on emerging debris items, things like PPE, e-cigarette waste are excellent examples. So our most recent update was just last year in 2021, and it's also available in Spanish now, which was very exciting for us to release that. And we look forward to translating even more of our beach sweeps materials. And we get all this data back from those excellent volunteer beach captains that I mentioned. They take a lot of time to compile the data from every single site, send it back to us, and then we take all of that and review the data and then publish it in annual reports. These are all available on our website at cleanoceanaction.org. And we use this as an educational opportunity, but also for us as an organization to monitor and study trends and to document changes in the types of debris, and then of course to educate citizens about litter. So I'll go a little bit into some of the highlights from our 2021 report. And the way that our report cycle works is that we collect all the data from April and October each year, and then we publish the previous year's data in the spring of the following year. So our 2021 report actually just came out in April of this past year. So this is pretty fresh information. We had record numbers during our 2021 sweeps, over 513,000 items collected by 10,003 volunteers. And we saw record amounts of plastic bottle caps and lids, as well as record food and candy wrappers and bags. So we're also able, because we have this data set that stretches back decades, we're able to do some comparative numbers. So routinely we look at 1 year to the previous year just to get a sense of how things are changing, but we'll also do longer term deep dives into the data. So this is pulled right from our report. We saw some increases in some items in particular. Like I mentioned, we saw lots of plastic bottle caps. So we also had plastic bottle cap rings increased pretty substantially. Another one I wanted to highlight to tee up the next speakers would be balloons. Mylar and rubber balloons increased by over 35% from 2019. And I'm excluding 2020 because we only had one cleanup that year. So it's a little irregular and we didn't want to use it for comparison. But then, some substantial decreases as well. Lots of declines in some of the things that we don't like to see on the beach, in particular, like diapers and condoms, tampon applicators. Some of those things are indicative of CSOs. So it's good to see that there was a bit of decline in some of those items. And then, as I mentioned, as needed, and as we have interest in these types of items, we will track new types of litter. So these are all of the items that were added in 2021. Cotton swab sticks, brightly colored plastic sticks that you find out on the beach. They usually don't have the cotton left on them. We've been seeing more and more of those. The dental floss picks are everywhere. I'm sure that was reported maybe in some of the storm drain data. And then we also captured PPE. So over 3,500 face masks, whether disposable or reusable, were collected last year alone. And then the e-cigarette waste, we're seeing some declines in regular cigarette filters, but now we have this new cigarette waste that's just adding more plastic to the marine environment, unfortunately. And I think I've made it pretty clear already that plastic is the predominant type of litter that we see from our beach sweeps in 2021 was 82.32% of all of the litter collected was plastic, and that includes foam as well. So that's the evidence is right there as to why we're particularly concerned about plastic litter. And you'll see what we call our dirty dozen in the chart. That's our top 12 most commonly collected items. And again, most of those are plastic items. We have paper pieces and glass pieces, and those are the only, so 10 out of 12 items on there are plastic. And for the first time in quite a few years, plastic bottle caps and lids actually exceeded plastic pieces. So that was pretty interesting to see, and we'll be curious to see what happens with our 2022 data. And of course, just for fun, we always ask our volunteers to keep track of the strange things that they find. You never know what you will find on the Jersey Shore. So this is just a smattering of items that we included in our roster of the ridiculous last year. My personal favorite is that someone found a whole CD case full of Limp Bizkit CDs, which is just so bizarre. I have so many questions about that. That's a particularly good find. And to drive it all home, the data is fun and interesting to look at, and from more of a scientific perspective. But as I talked about earlier, we collect all of this data to drive action and policy. So these are just some examples of the federal and statewide legislation where we have lent our beach sweeps data to advocate for these laws to be passed. That includes the very exciting Single-Use Plastic Waste Reduction Act that was passed in 2020, and that just fully went into effect a couple weeks ago. We were so happy to be able to use the beach sweeps data to advocate for the strongest plastic reduction law in the country. So that was very exciting. And I'll leave it to the next speakers to talk more about how we're using the balloon data to advocate for some balloon release bans. So moving forward, there are still many obstacles to a debris-free sea, but again, we feel that all of the beach sweeps data is really valuable to be able to address a lot of these, to advocate for littering and recycling enforcement, to advocate for updating our infrastructure, to incentivize recycling markets. And then of course, we're trying with every beach sweep to address the debris that is already out there in the sea, and to just try to make a dent in what's out there by getting thousands of volunteers out to the beach to remove it. And then I did want to highlight opportunities for collaboration with our beach sweeps and with clean communities in all of your towns. So as I mentioned, I'm very grateful to partner with many clean communities coordinators who volunteer as Clean Ocean Action beach captains. Participating in the beach sweeps, as far as I understand, and I'll let Joanne confirm this at the conclusion, but our beach sweeps can count towards your cleanups within your communities. So we love to partner with the Clean Communities coordinators. You have excellent resources. You have all the community contacts to be able to get lots of volunteers to participate. And then we are then able to share the data with you so that you can utilize our beach sweeps data specifically from your town for education and outreach campaigns. So we'd love to see the data being used, as I think I've emphasized, and we're happy to share that data with you to see it make an impact in reducing litter in your town so that it helps to reduce litter in the marine environment. So thank you so much again for this opportunity. I hope to continue collaborations with all of the wonderful Clean Communities coordinators that I already work with, and perhaps after today, I'll get to connect with even more of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Allison. That was fantastic. Clean Ocean Action, I was actually part of the beach sweeps down in Sandy Hook this year on April 9th, and I was just overwhelmed at how many people were there. And I literally stopped along the side of the road, not in the middle of the road, and just took a picture of the hundreds of volunteers that were knee deep in the water cleaning up litter. So it was fantastic. I'm going to ask you if you can at some point to maybe throw into the chat the website where people can go and find some the data that you shared with us. But I think Carol has one question for you before we move on.
Yes, the question is, with the popularity of beach concerts and the amount of waste that is left on the beaches after these concerts, has Clean Ocean Action contacted or been contacted by these organizers to make sure they're keeping this debris from reaching the ocean?
That is an excellent question. We have not done that type of outreach and advocacy yet, as far as I know, but I think that's a really good recommendation. I do know that, some of the concerts that I'm thinking of, and John Weber could actually speak to this, Surfrider is involved in some of the beach concerts. So I know that usually they're aware of the fact that they're on the beach and try to reduce the amount of litter that's being used, or that's being generated. But yeah, that's a great suggestion. Maybe a campaign for this summer for us.
Thank you. And I can actually also throw out the litter-free programs that we used to promote back in the day. So whoever's giving the permits for these concerts should definitely make it a litter-free event, and make those that are, making all the money off the concerts, make sure they sign some sort of waiver to get that done. So thank you, Allison. And stick around and monitor the chat, because there may be more questions from people. I think there was a question if we can have your PowerPoint slide available. So that's a yes. So thank you. So I'm going to move on to my small portion of the presentation today. And I just want to say, can you believe I have made it this far into our conference without saying the word Bag Up NJ even once? What a year of preparation, presentations, press releases, PowerPoints, and a whole lot of nasty emails. Thank you, New Jersey. I wouldn't want it any other way. But today I actually want to talk about a program that I am so especially proud of. In February, we launched a video PSA contest in conjunction with the DEP. Individual or groups of up to 5 students were asked to create a 60-second video that focused on a theme. This year's theme was reduce single use. To give you a recap, because I'm all about lessons learned and takeaways, the contest was open to 7th to 12th graders. We had 2 different age categories. There was a first, second, and third place winner in each category. We developed rules and regs, the entry form, a rubric for scoring, and created a panel of judges. Those 4 things. The only overhead outside, obviously, of the prizes that we awarded was adding a Google Drive to our website, which we needed to receive the videos. I personally was overwhelmed at the creativity of the videos we received. I even shed a few tears. My son made fun of me constantly when he saw me crying. But I want to personally thank all of the judges who spent a whole lot of time reviewing them. So thank you, Erin. Thank you, Julia, Connor, Jenny O, Elise, and Carol. I hope to make this an annual contest and inspire you to do the same at the county or local level. It's a little bit of work, but it's a whole lot of fun. And I'm here to help and share the basics to get you started. So to that end, I would like to share the first place winning video from category 1. They're only 60 seconds or less, so don't be scared. This video was submitted by a group of 8th graders from the Princeton Charter School in Mercer County. So good job, Lily, Coco, Sophia, Emily, and Joanna. I hope those Amazon gift cards went to good use. Let's see what they got.
Over the years, single-use plastics have caused marine animals to become entangled in or to ingest plastic debris. This causes suffocation, starvation, and drowning. It's estimated that there are 100 million tons of plastic in oceans around the world. This plastic pollution kills 100,000 marine mammals every year. If this continues, It is almost guaranteed that whenever you eat seafood next, it will be contaminated with plastic. However, in November of 2020, New Jersey passed a law banning single-use plastics. This law comes into effect on May 4th, 2022. With this new law, we can all expect many positive outcomes. New Jersey will eliminate 2.43 pounds of plastic per person. This is a total of about 1.85 billion less bags per year.
Very impactful 60 seconds, ladies. Our first place winner in category 2 hails from the Communications High School in Wall Township in Monmouth County. I will let you know, we had 6 winners in 6 different counties, so from all over New Jersey. Aaron Diamont is exactly in the school he's supposed to be in a Communications High School. As I don't think there's been a better video since The Crying Indian, which is certainly making, aging me. But Aaron's video, I watched it probably 15 times, and I'm not lying that I shed a tear every single one. And I probably will again. So here's Aaron.
Scientists predict that by 2050, there will be the same amount of plastic in our oceans as there are fish. This is why New Jersey has created a single-use plastics law. Simple actions can go a long way to help, like using reusable bags when shopping, avoiding plastic straws, no thank you, and using reusable containers. Make sure to put your trash in its proper place, so it doesn't end up here on the side of the road, or here in a tree, or here at the storm drain, because next time it rains, it will end up here in our oceans and other waterways. And that's why there's a new law about single-use plastics, and why we all need to do our part to reduce single use.
I love that kid. I love that video. So it's hard to believe we're only in year 1 of our 3-year single-use plastics campaign. So I thought I'd give you a snapshot of what is going to lie ahead. New Jersey Clean Communities will continue to meet with our counterparts at the DEP, the New Jersey Business Action Center, the New Jersey Food Council, where we share issues, ideas, and will work to promote New Jersey's Get Past Plastic campaign. We will also be getting guidance from the newly established Plastics Advisory Council. We'll continue with our reusable bag giveaways across New Jersey. We'll be working with the New Jersey food banks to get free bags to those in need. We'll focus on related issues such as washing and sanitizing your reusable bags, as well as how to donate the extra bags we acquire along the way. Program note, if you go to the news drop-down menu on bagupnj.com, there is a link to the website that food banks just launched for their reusable bag donation program. It is zip code based, so residents will have the opportunity to donate their bags locally. And I encourage all of you to add this link to your own website, and I will post that in the chat later on because it will come up in session 5. But today we're focused on litter. So what is the next big step now that we have gotten rid of all those single-use plastic bags? We're talking balloons. Balloon releases are basically a powder keg of litter. And it's time that we got rid of that practice. And it's kind of shocking that it's gone on sort of unchecked for this long. We have 2 fabulous speakers today to jumpstart this conversation. Zach Klein is the policy attorney for Clean Ocean Action, born and raised in North Jersey, because we always got to keep the good ones. Zach earned his undergraduate degree from George Washington University, graduated from Boston College Law School, and then spent 2 years as a law fellow for the National Sea Grant Law Center at University of Mississippi. He resides in Red Bank. That's where my best friend and college roommate lives, with his girlfriend Amelia and their 2 dogs, Buddy and Dexter. Zach's role today is to provide an overview of balloon release programs across the country. John Weber is then going to give us the status on balloon bans at the local front. John joined the Surfrider Foundation staff in 2005 as the first employee on the East Coast after volunteering for many years. He is now the Mid-Atlantic Regional Manager and assists the Surfrider Foundation chapters from New York to Virginia, and has helped in plastics campaign and balloon releases, and is a member of the New Jersey Plastics Advisory Council. John's been a volunteer on the planning board in Bradley Beach, the Environmental Commission, and is also a town council member in Bradley Beach. So gentlemen, I'm turning it over to you.
Thank you so much, Joanne. Wanted to start first by thanking you for organizing this conference and for this panel in particular. This is a topic that Clean Ocean Action does a lot of work on for good reason, as you heard from my colleague Allison Joan during her presentation just a few moments ago. I also wanted to thank you for sharing those incredible videos. Those students should be incredibly proud of themselves. There's lots of kudos being shared in the chat, rightfully so. Those were really, really great. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so we can get my presentation started. Here we go, and I'll get presentation mode underway. Like Joanne said, my name is Zachary Klein. I'm the policy attorney for Clean Ocean Action, and I'm here today to cover state-level balloon release bans around the US, a bird's eye view of where these laws are at the state level as opposed to the municipal level around the country. So first and foremost, this is a topic that's been on people's radars here in the US for decades now at this point. And there were a couple states that ended up being trailblazers on this topic who acted on it when it first started coming on people's radars as an environmental concern back in the late 80s and early 90s. Those 4 states are Connecticut, Florida, Tennessee, and California. I won't go bullet point by bullet point here, but in broad strokes, what's important to consider is that these bans tend to focus more so on the mass release of balloons, sorry. 10 or more in Connecticut and Florida, although you see differing amounts of the dollar fines there, 75 in Connecticut, 250 in Florida. Tennessee defines the mass release of balloons as 25 or more balloons in a day. A $250 fine accompanies that. And then California is a little unique. They specifically ban the release of balloons that are made of electrically conductive material as part of a public event, promotion, etc., product advertisement. Those violations you also see are accompanied by a $100 fine. And after the 3rd violation, that's upgraded to a misdemeanor. And although you see a picture here of balloons in the sea, which is a very powerful image, that is absolutely litter that could become eaten by marine life. It could, nothing good comes of balloons like that, especially that many in the ocean. That's a picture we took here in New Jersey. California, coming back to the point I mentioned, because they were concerned not only about the environmental risks that were posed at face value, but also in the spirit of being trailblazers. There was also concern there from the beginning about the threat posed by balloons when they become entangled in electrical wires, whether that means power outages or causing wildfires. It's absolutely a concern in other states as well, but as I'm sure many of the people on this chat are already familiar with, there are unique problems when it comes to power outages and wildfires in California that added a particular flavor, a nuance, an angle to that bill that you didn't necessarily see in some of these other trailblazing states. And then after years, decades of only having those 4 states with laws on the books about balloon release bans, we move on to 2021, which ended up being a really big year for balloon release bans here in the US. 6 different states passed laws that in some form or another prohibited the release of balloons. And what's interesting here as we move from the last slide to this one is that the trailblazers tended to focus on the mass release of balloons, 10 balloons or more, 5 balloons or more. Here in 2021, there was recognition that even the release of 1 balloon posed an issue. And they certainly upgraded the punishments that accompanied the release of mass balloons, recognizing that that itself is a stronger, a more intense problem that requires greater incentive to combat. Here you see pretty close to home for us here in New Jersey that Delaware passed a law that separated punishment for the release of 1 to 4 balloons as opposed to 5 or more. Maryland passed a law. Virginia, I'd like to highlight theirs, was a pretty simple $25 fine per balloon, no matter the number of balloons. And they provided a blanket exception for federal and state agencies there. And that's a little unique because in all the other examples we're going to talk about today that we have talked about, the exemptions there tend to be pretty specific in that they exempt balloons that are released for meteorological purposes or pursuant to a government contract. So there's good reason to make sure that federal agencies, that state agencies are able to release balloons in some circumstances, but by making the exemption so broad there, they effectively allowed state agencies, if they so chose, to have balloons at an outside party or event, which whether or not agencies are taking advantage of that loophole, I can't say for sure. The law has only been on the books for a year as it is, but that is something to be careful about as we consider language that might help ensure that the spirit of these balloon release bans are fulfilled to their highest potential. The other 3 states that passed balloon release bans last year were Rhode Island, Hawaii, and Maine. Hawaii and Maine in particular were considered 2 of the strictest, the toughest balloon release laws that were passed last year. Hawaii has a $500 fine per offense, although there you'll see that multiple balloons being released at one time still counts as one offense. So you could release 10 balloons, theory, I suppose 100 balloons, $500 fine. Still a big fine, but not necessarily distinguishing the number of balloons in a significant way. Maine, you'll see, hits pretty hard, both when it comes to smaller balloon release events, 1 to 10, which are accompanied by pretty steep fines. And then you'll see that the release of more than 10 balloons is also accompanied by very, very severe fines. And this begs the question, what is the status of balloon release laws here in New Jersey? And the answer there is that there have been some proposals in the legislature, but they haven't actually passed yet. Most recently, we've seen a few different proposals come to light. One was from Senator Declan O'Scanlan in the Senate that would have accompanied release of balloons by a $500 violation, similar to Hawaii, where the release of multiple balloons at one time would be considered one violation. There was another bill very similar to that first bill I mentioned. This one, there's an asterisk next to the word sponsor there because there have been variations of this bill. Assemblyman McKeon, who's listed there, hasn't been the sole sponsor for all of them, but he does seem to be one of the common threads, perhaps the common thread. And, you know, very similar to that first bill, $500 fine per violation. And then Senator Hotaling also had a bill that was accompanied, skipping ahead there, by a $1,000 fine for the release of not only a balloon, but any other floating device. And it would have been accompanied by a $2,000 fine for failing to recover tethered balloons and floating devices. So those are the 2 big distinctions of Assemblyman Hotaling's bill there. One, that it would have covered not only balloons, but other floating devices, which could pose similar issues. And then also 2, that it explicitly covers the tethering of balloons and failing to recover balloons that might become untethered. So finally, this begs the question, what is Clean Ocean Action's preferred language? This is a picture, unfortunately, that Clean Ocean Action took of a balloon at Sandy Hook not too long ago. So definitely an issue that hits close to home. And as far as we see it, our preferred language would apply to both balloons and other floating devices. It would cover not only the intentional release of balloons, but also failing to collect balloons and other devices that become untethered. And one of the big distinctions between our preferred language and the language that you just saw in Assemblyman Hotaling's bill is that Clean Ocean Action would also like to require retailers of balloons and these other floating devices to display a sign at the point of sale or at the point of display in the store that notifies purchasers of the ban, and ideally might even go farther to explain that it poses this environmental risk, the release of balloons. And so our language that we're still shopping around now, the penalties would be, as you see there, in the $100 to $500 range, depending on the offense. So that is the current status of where balloon ban proposals stand in New Jersey and around the country more generally. Maybe we'll pass it off to John now, and I'll take questions together with him at the end if that makes the most sense. So without further ado, John Weber.
Thanks, Zach. I really appreciate it. Can everybody hear me okay? I'm going to assume that's a yes. So like I said, thanks, Jack and Zach, and thanks, Joanne, for putting us on the panel here. This is really great. And thanks, everybody can hear me good. I'm going to talk about the local balloon laws and share my screen here real quickly. I do want to tell you a little bit of an origin story on how it came that we work on so many local balloon laws. In the Down Beach section, if people don't know what Down Beach is, these are the towns south of Atlantic City. So that's Ventnor, Margate, and Longport. They're working together on their green team to do stuff about plastic bags, actually, and possibly other plastics. And they're all working together and seeing if they could get this is years ago, to get a bag law passed locally. But in that process of working on plastic bags and other plastics, they noticed that the city of Margate had a law against balloons, and it was already on the books, and it was against intentionally releasing balloons, and it was already on the books, and it looked like it had been there for years. And with a little bit of research, they figured out that a former mayor a while back was just a charter captain, a charter boat captain, or he had a big vessel that he took out there, and he would always see balloons, big bunches of balloons out there, and he just came back and passed a law, and that was great news. The Down Beach green teams continued to work on getting laws for plastic bags, but it gave them the idea, why can't we ban the intentional release of balloons here as well? So that started, at least in South Jersey, rolling some of these other local balloon laws. And what I have here is simply a map of New Jersey, roughly divided in north to south, as you can see. I hope the resolution there is good enough. And if people want, we can have a robust debate about where the dividing line is between North and South Jersey, but for the purpose of fitting it on my slide, here it is. So you can see there's a handful of towns. New Milford's up in Bergen County, and then a bunch of towns closer to the shore: Tinton Falls, Asbury Park, Bradley Beach, Point Pleasant Beach. I don't know how New Milford came about. They just did this on their own. I know that Surfrider Foundation had something to do. Oh, and I'm going to add Long Branch to this list, which was a little more recent. But I know Surfrider Foundation had something to do with getting it passed in Asbury Park and Bradley Beach and Long Branch, which is really great news. And then to randomly decide where South Jersey starts. Here we go with the South Jersey. A lot more towns in South Jersey, and many, many more coastal towns, as you can see. I'm not going to read through the whole list here. Mount Laurel being the one inland, and Egg Harbor City a little bit more inland. But once we got Long Beach Township, which is most of Long Beach Island, and then to go geographically, Brigantine is on the list, And Atlantic City is on their list. And I feel like Atlantic City did it on their own just because their neighbors were doing it. And then once you get past Atlantic City, we've got those down beach towns, Ventnor, Margate, Longport. So there's this really big, long stretch of towns in South Jersey that have all banned the intentional release of balloons all the way down, almost all the way down to into Cape May City. So the reality is that these local ordinances banning the intentional release of balloons is deceptively, it's just deceptively simple. You know, legislation can get long and complicated and you know, many page bills and stuff, but these are typically 1 or 2 paragraph, you know, 1 or 2 page as maximum laws that simply ban the intentional release of balloons in that town. You know, there's always an exception for weather balloons, you know, scientific research or anything like that. You know, I'll just see that, and an exemption for hot air balloons as well. And you know, the fines vary by town, but that's understandable. But they're all very, very simple, and to get them passed has been rather simple as well. It's just typically if a handful of people bring this to the town, either through their green team, their environmental commission, or just bring it to a local elected official, you can show the list of towns that are you know, already doing this. And again, I think it's maybe a few more than that slide. That slide was made a couple years ago before we started working on the statewide law. And simply a few people with some well-reasoned logic, maybe a brief statement or two at a couple of council meetings, and then boom, you have a law banning the intentional release of balloons. I see Joanne's done a fantastic job. There's over 200 people on this call. I'm probably representing approximately that many towns. It would be fantastic if we could get, if we could just double the amount of towns that have a local balloon law. And as Zach said, we've had some efforts on a statewide law. You'd think if 20-something towns did it, that would be enough to get the state to take action. Obviously that we haven't crossed the finish line on that yet. So I'm going to make the case for, you know, redoubling efforts at the local levels. And again, if we got 200 towns on here, I think it should be pretty easy to double the amount of towns with a law banning the intentional release of balloons. So if we can get up more like 40 or 50 towns, I think that really gives us a lot more impetus on the state level for passing such a law. I will say one thing, I think in this process of doing the state law, we learned how we could improve these local laws, because as Zach pointed out, one of the things that we liked in a recent version of the state law, which didn't pass, but is to include tethering of balloons. You know, how realtors are you know, famous for this, to, you know, bring attention to an open house sign, just tethering to a street pole or some kind of sign or something like that. I think a local law, I think it'd be great to include the tethering of balloons, that maybe that they can't be left out overnight or something like that. So just make sure that anybody that tethered them can just go and get them. And then I think the other item that would be a good improvement, even on a local law, is this idea of some kind of education at point of sale. Just, you know, even if it's just a little, some kind of sign similar to what we had in the state law, saying like, you know, for a place that sells balloons, just letting people know that the intentional release of balloons is not allowed in this town. So these are all laws about the intentional release of balloons. I will say, again, I help Surf Rider Foundation chapters up and down the mid-Atlantic, New York to Virginia. So I will say that in New York, they have taken the next step in the town of East Hampton. That's basically the eastern end of Long Island. And they've taken the next step, and they have actually banned the sale of balloons. And that's maybe the next frontier. And I think, you know, I think we're successful on this local level, because once we get on the state level, there is this thing called the Balloon Council. And once we're talking about passing a state law, this gets on the Balloon Council's radar. And, you know, I don't have evidence that they're actually lobbying against this, but I would imagine that they're lobbying against this. They're the Balloon Council. They're looking out for the interests of people who sell balloons and people who make balloons and whatever. But when we keep it to the local level, you know, the Balloon Council is a statewide organization, a nationwide organization, actually located in New Jersey and Trenton. But when we keep it on the local level, it's kind of hard to keep track of 565 different towns. So I think they have a really great shot of getting a lot more towns in New Jersey to pass a local ban on the intentional release of balloons. And that should be a great step for us to get a statewide law. And then we can join all these other mid-Atlantic states that have done it and other states around the country that have done it. So I will leave the rest of the time for questions. I'll go stop sharing here. And anything about local laws, or I know there was a question before about local concerts. If people want to ask that question, that's fine. I'm happy to take that and explain what Allison meant when she mentioned that. But thanks again, everybody, for being here listening. Thanks again to Joanne for having us, and I'm happy to take some questions.
Thank you, guys. That was excellent. But I just want to say before we move on, we really only have time for one question. But I know a lot of you are saying how do I make this happen? So we've already thought about that. We've talked about it. We're going to be we're going to find the 3 best model ordinances in New Jersey, and we're going to post them on our best practices. You know me, I'm always about the carrot. We're also going to be giving 3 certification credits for anyone who advocates to get this on, to get a balloon release ban going in their town. I don't want to ban the practice of selling balloons. I got way too much hate mail last year over plastic bags. So I need a little love coming into 2022. I just posted preventballoonlitter.org in the chat. We don't have time to show the video I was going to show, but they have a great free video in English and Spanish just to encourage different celebrations in lieu of balloon releases. So Carol, we can do one question.
Okay, one quick question. For the most part, who is charged with enforcement for the balloon regulations for these local ordinances? Is it police departments or others?
Yeah, so in some cases, that's going to end up being a decision of the town. But if it's a town ordinance and the town wants to have, say, whoever would enforce, their other plastic laws. I mean, in some cases, it's going to be their code enforcer. And again, realizing it's hard to catch somebody in the act of doing this, right? This is why the education is really key. So towns could decide to have their police forces do it. They could decide to have their code enforcers do it. But I will say one thing, like in beach towns, especially, a lot of people come to us for permits. They want to have events and things like that. And we've just made it part of our permit process to like remind them we have no intentional release of balloons. And this just maybe gets it out of people's minds if they ever thought in relation to an event. Doesn't prevent the single person coming down and letting a balloon go for possibly no good reason. But hard to catch in the act, but I think it's really up to the town how they want to enforce that. Could be a code person though.
That's a great takeaway, John, making it part of your permit. I say that about recycling and all that good stuff. So that's definitely something to write down on your pad and paper as a takeaway for today. Continue to monitor the chat, guys, because I'm sure there's a lot of other questions. We could probably talk about this. I could for a whole half day. We do have one final session, which is going to be about a half hour, but you can't go away because we're going to talk grant money at the end. So that's the carrot to make you stay. Last but certainly not least, our final session today will focus on New Jersey's historic transition to becoming the first reusable bag state. I have 3 words. We did it. We all have our May 4th stories, but today we're going to hear from experts in the industry that will give you a firsthand account of how it all went behind the scenes and what challenges still lie ahead. A few days ago, they sat down and did a panel discussion, which is what we're going to share with you now. So it is my pleasure to turn the program over to the president of the New Jersey Food Council and the president of the New Jersey Clean Communities Board of Trustees, Linda Dougherty.
May 4th was a big day for New Jersey retailers. So we're here today to continue our conversation on the implementation of the new plastic law and bag ban. Welcome. I'm Linda Dougherty, President of the New Jersey Food Council and President of the Clean Communities Council. Last year, during this virtual conference, we started this discussion on what retailers were considering as they began to develop their plans to ban single-use bags. Today, we're going to focus on the tactical implementation and operational strategies used by food retailers to comply with the law. And we are so excited that we have both back two New Jersey food retail powerhouses to provide insight into the rollout and how the Bag Up New Jersey campaign was instrumental in providing a platform for public outreach and public education. Joining us is Jean Eichinger, Team Leader for Sustainability and Government Relations at Wawa, New Jersey's largest convenience store chain. Jean has spent most of her 40-year career with Wawa in human resources, training, and development. She has worked in government relations and sustainability for the past 10 years, and she's a great Food Council partner. We are so pleased that she's joining us today to share her feedback on the BAG program. Joining Jean is Cheryl Kremitz, Retail Communications Specialist at Wakefern Food Corporation, New Jersey's largest private employer and the nation's largest food cooperative. After 3 years as a social media specialist for their banners, ShopRite, Fresh Grocer, and Price Right, Cheryl has been on the bag ban beat ever since, developing internal and external campaigns to respond to legislation in Connecticut, New York, Delaware, Philadelphia, and now New Jersey. So thank you both for joining me today to provide your company's perspective to address the evolution of the new bag ban and plastic law. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you.
So let's get underway. Thanks, Jean. So let's get underway and let's talk about implementation of the plastic law and what led up to some of your discussions and decision-making, because it is a complex law. So Jean, why don't we start with you and talk about Wawa's perspective on implementation?
So I'm going to tell you, I want to first thank you, Linda, for having us. It was much better than I expected. The planning, the few years of planning and all the resources that New Jersey Clean gave us, the New Jersey Food Council was able to give us, made for a really, really smooth transition. We still had some bumps, but I think that compared to some of the other states that were before New Jersey, I think this was a lot better than any of us expected.
Great. Cheryl, how about you?
So as you mentioned, first of all, thank you for including me. I'm happy to be here. As you mentioned in my introduction, I've been working on bag bans throughout our trading area for about the past 3.5 years. So we had started out with individual municipalities throughout New Jersey, and then we had statewide rollouts in Connecticut, New York, Delaware, the Philadelphia city bag ban. And so we have a lot of learnings from those previous laws. However, New Jersey was the first one to ban both single-use plastic and paper, which added a new wrinkle, given that New Jersey also contains the largest density of our stores, that, you know, it gave us a critical mass that we hadn't dealt with in those previous areas. And so we started about 18 months ago with, you know, a huge cross-divisional working group to make sure that we were able to develop a 2-tier pre and post enactment campaign, educating both our store teams on operations, but also the public on how their experience in store would change once the bag ban got here, because as you know, it's a completely new checkout experience for everybody involved. And so this one was a big lift. We worked on it for 18 months. We did, you know, a huge amount of planning. We did WebExes with our owners, with our store teams to, you know, make sure that they understood the nuances of the law, because it is extremely nuanced. A lot of our stores also include, you know, liquor stores and pharmacies, which have, you know, different parameters than just stores that don't. And so we had a lot of planning to do and a lot of difficult conversations to have. But we do feel that our stores were very prepared and ready to go. Obviously rollout day, there are people who are confused. They are not ready. We did start messaging the ban in store back in October 2021 to give our customers and also remind our associates that this was coming in 6 months. So hopefully that stuck, but it was a lift and we got through it. I think it went as smoothly as possible. And we're continuing to tweak things in real time based on customer and associate feedback.
And can you follow up on the nuance of the checkout experience? Because a lot of folks don't recognize that, many retailers have that down to a science. When someone gets into the checkout line and how you want to move them through when they're making payment, when you're packaging products and getting them out the door. And that, I'm assuming, had an impact on now reusable bags.
Sure.
And how that experience is.
I mean, it slows down the process. You just, by dint of having these large tote bags that somebody may be bringing from home, taking them out, they're not necessarily used to bagging their own. Before, when we had the single-use bags, it was very easy for the cashiers to just drop things right into the bag. Now we have to retrain both our cashiers, our baggers, and our customers to handle their own personal bags and new bags if they're purchasing them at the point of sale.
So Jean, let's talk supply chain and reusable bags and tray options, because, the world has changed dramatically. And as you're making these transitions to these new type of products or the sale of these products, Jean, how has it been with the supply chain? And what are some of those challenges?
So I'm going to start with saying that because of all the work done up front, as Cheryl had mentioned with her company, we sourced bags early, so we've been okay. Not to say that it isn't going to become more and more difficult to get bags. We've already noticed that the supply chain has been an issue with bags in some of our areas. We've streamlined our process where we used to offer 3 reusable bags. We only offer 1 now. And it is getting more and more difficult to source products, as you mentioned. I think we're okay on reusable bags for right now. We're going to have some operational issues when it comes to bags. So all of our bagging stations, as Cheryl mentioned, are set up for plastic bags, for t-shirt bags, and it does slow down our operation. So to have our customers retrained, our associates retrained on how to best use a reusable bag to keep the flow of customer traffic going is going to be a big challenge. But I think for supply chain right now, although, it was an obstacle, I think we have, sourced it. But I think in the future, as more and more companies source reusable bags, they're going to definitely be harder for us to get.
Cheryl, did you want to add to that?
It's just a matter of planning as far ahead as we possibly can, because we did know, we had so much lead time to this ban. We were prepared for the enactment, but there's that sort of period in not knowing exactly how many bags we were going to be selling. We knew that there was going to be, an upswing, especially for our polypropylene reusable totes, which are, the sturdier of the options that are now available and compliant to the law. We also have an 80 GSM bag that looks very similar to the single use, but it's got, that sort of fabric-y feel that people are starting to get at other, at retailers across the state now. Our procurement teams are on it, and they are reaching out to vendors that we may not have worked with in the past, just to cast a wider net and make sure that we are able to cover any gaps that may arise. So far, we haven't seen it, but we're preparing, knowing exactly what the supply chain looks like, and we're not anticipating any struggles going forward. But we're just being cautious and making sure that we're able to handle it if something should happen that we don't have any control over.
So when you got to May 4th, did you have leftover single-use paper and plastic bags. You know, a lot of folks that May 4th, that was it. That was the ban went into place. What happened on May 4th? What did you do with any leftover? Were there leftover bags?
It varied store by store. We did have a program where we were dwindling down the number of bags stores were asked to order heading into May 4th. So hopefully they did a good job managing their inventory. And for those who did have leftovers, we strongly recommended that they find a local food bank to donate them to, because the food banks do have a 6-month extension to comply with the law. And we have such a close working relationships through our community outreach programs anyway, that most stores did have an outlet for that.
Great. And Jean, how about you? I know you, I'm not sure if there was any leftover, but I know you also then had a reusable bag giveaway. So how did that work?
So we did have some leftover, and like Wakefern, our Wawa associates worked with what we call our food donation connection, and they donated any leftover that they had. But we also prepared ahead of time and tried to run out of plastic and to help our associates and customers prepare for the ban. We did give out 1,000 bags per store for customers, first come, first served, as well as made sure that all of our associates had a reusable bag, so they could start bringing reusable bags home instead of plastic. So just to start that education out with our associates first, so they knew how it was going to be for the customer.
Right, and Cheryl, I think, some of your owners, I think, may have had some special events or bag giveaways as well at some of your locations.
Yes, we're a co-op, and so we have individual owners of our stores, and many of them did do community events where they would hand out bags, work with local sustainability organizations. We also had 2 major promotions prior to the bag ban, one that we do annually, and that's tied to Earth Day, which fell very nicely in with the run-up timeline this year. And we also did a huge promotion 2 weeks prior to the ban and 2 weeks post-ban on our reusable tote bag.
Great.
And reminded folks to stock up. And it doesn't take long for people to sort of get the message. Once you go and you forget once, you're unlikely to forget the next time. But we have signs all over our stores and in, our windows. We have, cart corral signage available and banners. And so to remind folks when they leave their cars, because I've done it and I'm sure everybody else has done it, you forget your bags in the trunk. You go and you're like, bags are in the trunk. So the more we remind folks not to do that, the less they'll have to purchase in store.
Great. And how was the state messaging? Was it appropriate? The Clean Communities Council had put together the Bag Up New Jersey campaign and the material and the toolkit, and it seemed very consistent. And that was the thought, it would be consistent throughout all retailers, that they could utilize the same messaging. Jean, was that helpful at Wawa?
So we had developed some messaging early on as different counties and townships in New Jersey had implemented bag bans prior to the state. So we used messaging that mirrored New Jersey Clean, but we obviously kept our Wawa, logo and information on it. But certainly that information was great. And being able to drive through the state and see billboards and other communications, I think New Jersey did a great job with media, from newspaper to magazines to signage everywhere. So it was very helpful. I think it helped to prepare our customers and certainly helped to prepare our associates.
Good. Cheryl?
Yes, I agree with Jean. We had, just because of all of the work that had been developed for previous states' laws, we did have sort of we call it our plan for the ban campaign. And so what we did with that was we integrated the Bag Up NJ logo and website into those materials so that if people had questions about the ban, when they saw sort of that initial, oh, plan for the ban, well, what ban? What do I have to do? They were able to go to the site, understand that it was a state mandate, that it was not, something that ShopRite was levying on them out of the blue. And so that was very helpful to really, put a context around the law. You also did a lot of extra collateral, including in-store repeaters, which are the messages you hear as you walk through the store. And so that was nice to have, again, from an official statewide organization, so that our shoppers do understand, okay, because we heard, well, what does this do? Why are you doing this to us? And it helped to explain that we're not doing it to you from a store perspective. We're just complying with the state mandate. And so I thought it was very effective, very helpful.
Great. The one question I get asked the most, and I'm sure you do as well, and the unintended consequences of the online sales, right? The e-commerce piece. Now, when this law was put into place, it was being debated. It was pre-COVID, and we did not see that explosion of online shopping or third-party shoppers. And so I know that's caused angst amongst customers as well as retailers trying to figure it out. So Cheryl, what's going on with Wakefern? And I know this is a work in progress, but
it is.
Yeah, can you share?
Sure. Well, we tested several options prior to the law's enactment, just to kind of understand, okay, we can't use those single-use plastic. What options are available? So we tested, cardboard trays, we tested all sorts of bags, and we came up with the best solution to for both operations and for our customer, keeping the hot things hot and the cold things cold, was a gusseted 80 GSM bag, which is the same material as our front end option, but just a little configured a little bit differently to help delivery. And we are offering those currently to our online shoppers for a flat fee of $1.50, no matter how many bags are used. And for an average online order, you're looking at 8 to 10 bags. So you're only paying $1.50 and getting quite a few bags anyway. We are in real time working through some of the logistical issues that customers have brought up to ease the delivery and pickup solution, and we are going to get there. It's just a matter of asking our customers to be patient. We have never done this on such a large scale without the option to have a paper bag, and so that's what we've used in other states to get us over the hump. We don't have that luxury here, so we are finessing our options right now, and it'll evolve over time, sooner than later, most likely, because we are hearing our customers. Their feedback is super important to us. So I feel like, this is going to be the solution. However, we're going to finesse it so that it better works. It hasn't been bad, but when we hear feedback, we do take it seriously, and we want to make sure that we're covering our bases for as many of our customers as we can.
Great. And Jean, what's happening at Wawa?
So a little bit different than what you would experience in a grocery store, because we don't actually fit the model or the law for a grocery store. So currently they're still using their delivery bag at Wawa. It's been working okay. We haven't, we've had to change some processes throughout this because of the wide use of the catering bag and/or delivery bags, soup side bag, those kinds of bags. I think it's a little confusing for customers. Again, still working through this. I think it's a work in progress. Wawa is doing the best that they can at this time to make sure anything that they use, it has the least amount of impact on the environment as possible.
So, and I know both of you, I think, are also, you mentioned working with the food banks and maybe exchange programs or recycling programs? Because we'll probably start to see an influx of reusable bags, particularly if they're going home and folks are not coming back to the stores to use those bags. There could be a glut of these types of bags that are collected in people's homes. What are your thoughts on that, Cheryl?
Well, that's the main feedback that we've gotten. It's like, I'm a weekly online shopper. What am I supposed to do when you send me 10 bags a week? And we are currently developing an in-store reusable bag recycling program. We have had, Wakefront has a long history of sustainability. We have our own recycling facility. And so it's important to us to keep that going, not only because it's the right thing to do to stick with the spirit of the law, but also because we don't want our customers to be inundated with these bags. And so we will be implementing this recycling program within the next couple of months. And we are also utilizing, I don't know if you have the link to put up on the screen, but the New Jersey Community Food Bank has a very helpful link that opens up to a map, and you can click on your location and find a local food bank that is very happily accepting donations of reusable bags.
Great, and we'll make sure we get that link out.
Mm-hmm. And so that's what we're telling our customers to do, and that's what our stores are doing as well.
Jean, did you want to add to that?
I think Cheryl said it perfectly. Again, time will tell. We're very early on in this process, and I think it's going to depend on our customers and their habits, and if they truly do reuse reusable bags, and or if they just start to use reusable bags the same as they used plastic. So I think time will tell how this is going to work, and I'm sure with everything, there's key learnings that happen every day. So I think this is just one of those wait and see, what are we going to do in the future? And I'm sure that New Jersey Food Council and Clean Communities and New Jersey DEP will be helpful in finding ways for, us to educate our consumer for a better way to get rid of these bags once there is, or if there is a glut.
Right, good point.
We're in an educational cycle for everybody, and every bag is just a single-use bag unless the customer reuses it. So, they have to decide how am I going to reuse these differently than I did with single-use bags. It's a transition for everyone and a mindset change. So, we're hoping to give them as many options as we can. But ultimately, everyone decides on how they're going to use their bag. We don't want to be in the bag selling business. I think, in our pre-talks, we were talking about that. We're here to sell food and feed your family, and bags are a supply that, it's a supply item that's needed to take your groceries out of the store, but that's not what we're here to sell. And the more people get used to bringing their own bags, the better it's going to work. And we saw in other states that it really doesn't take long. Up to 70% of our shoppers in other states bring their own bags, and they're used to it. It just becomes habit. And it's better. I mean, I personally like shopping better with the totes. You fit much more, you bring home fewer bags. It's easy once you get the habit, but it's just building a new habit.
So Cheryl, what has surprised you about this implementation? Is there anything that you just didn't expect and you were like, wow, didn't think of that? Or
we've been through it so many times in other states. People don't, I think the paper really threw people. People think of paper as a natural resource, but they don't understand necessarily the environmental impact of, producing recycling paper is equal to or even greater than the impact that single-use plastic has on the environment. We've looked at studies that show that paper takes a hard toll on the environment. And so it's good that it's out of our loop. However, people are used to having that option, and because they think it's a natural, it comes from trees, so it's natural. And so they don't necessarily get why it's a sustainability win. So again, it's just a matter of educating them.
Jean, anything surprise you?
I think and I'm not going to say a surprise, but one of our largest obstacles to get through is just the change in customer traffic, the slowdown at the register, people changing their habits, or associates changing their habits, making sure that they offer a bag and educate the customer and let them know they're no longer a free bag, that they have to purchase the bag and that they should, remind them to reuse the bag and bring it back in. So I think it's changed our patterns inside the store. And as you know, Wawa parking lots are a little crazy. And so when you keep that customer in the store, an extra 30 seconds or 45 seconds, the impact that it actually has to throughput in our parking lot. So again, maybe not a surprise, but now that we're seeing it in real time and the impact and effect that it has, it's something, again, that we're going to have to work through and challenge ourselves to do things, more, better, or differently to get through this.
Right. So are there any concerns as you move forward about implementation? It seems that your two organizations have a great handle on moving forward. Anything you see down the pike? I know in 2 years, then we'll be banning more of the polystyrene products, but, and of course that a lot goes into that behind the scenes when it comes to food safety and all those things that we're concerned with, but anything for the future of this new plastic law that is on your radar at this moment? Cheryl?
Sure. Yes, our next campaign will be focused on bag cleaning, reusable bag cleaning, so that customers get used to not only bringing their own bags, but cleaning them, so that, their bacteria doesn't build up. When you keep reusable bags in a car, sometimes the heat will, react with whatever debris may be in the bag. If you put chicken in or anything that can leak, to just sort of remember to clean out your bags on a frequent basis, so that A, they last longer, and B, they're easy to handle. And we're training our cashiers to help our customers bag their own personal bags. It's just sort of now it's a hygiene issue, especially still within a COVID environment. To make sure that everything that we all touch in the store is as clean as possible.
Jean, anything that you see on the horizon?
I think probably maybe a little bit of re-engineering the reusable bag so it's easier for both the customer and the associate. Continue looking for products that are going to be both environmentally friendly, but won't have as big of a financial impact to the customer, but still enough to make a difference where customers are going to be willing to change habits instead of, like I said earlier, start to use them as if they were just a disposable bag versus, reusing them. And then, as Cheryl said, maybe think about what's the next education piece. Is it, how to reuse or repurpose the reusable bags once they get, soiled or can't be reused anymore? What's the next best thing?
Yeah, and I think that's a great point to end on here, is that as we look to the future and repurposing, reusing, and the hygiene and the food safety part of the bags is something where the Clean Communities Council and the Food Council could probably get behind and engage in the next generation of a campaign. So with that, we'll end on that. Did anyone have any closing remarks or one last thing you want to add that you wanted to make a point?
So, something that just came up when we were talking about sort of the cleanliness of the bags is that people are asking, and this was a surprise, that some people are asking about, well, why can't you give me used product boxes? You go into a big box store and they'll have that sort of bin of used product boxes. And we did run that by our quality assurance team. And they recommended we not give that as an option to folks. because we don't know what was in those boxes prior, and we don't want to cross-contaminate anything. If there were chemicals, if they're, dirt from produce, you just don't know what was in there. And so we have had some folks say, well, why can't you just give us the boxes like some of the big box stores? And that's the reason why. And I was a little surprised to hear so many questions about that.
Good point. Jean, anything else you wanted to add before we wrap?
I think, again, just a big thank you to everyone in New Jersey for being so diligent about communicating and educating and really, trying to reach as many people and helping to prepare them, because it really made a big difference. When May 4th came, it was pretty seamless. And yes, do we have customers complain? Absolutely. Do we have associates whine? Absolutely. But I think in general and all in all, I would say that New Jersey did an awesome job of preparing and educating everyone for this. So I can't say thank you enough for this. And I know we're going to have more stumbling blocks along the way, but really great job by New Jersey. So thank you for that.
Great. That's a great way to end it. Thank you. On that note, thank you so much for this enlightening conversation. And as you said, Jean and Cheryl, there's still a lot more work to do. And the leadership on the program, the campaign of your companies and all the retailers here in New Jersey is an appreciated asset to the success of the rollout of this new law. So thank you both so much. And now let's get back to the rest of the program. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Linda, Cheryl, and Jean. I don't know about you guys. I thought that was very insightful, and I look forward to the next steps. And on behalf of all the shoppers in New Jersey, thank you for all that you do. We all realize how difficult these past 2 years have been in the food industry. So thank you, everyone, for staying a few minutes longer. Thank you to all the speakers and to Wawa once again for your sponsorship, to Pam for helping me out with all these purchase orders, for Fred and Carol for helping with the chat. Grant money, I just entered into the chat. The link on our website for the grant funding, it is not there yet. I actually just got it from the DEP about 12 minutes ago. But I'm going to do my best to make sure it's there by the end of today. So keep that, save that link and get there by the end of today. Hopefully you will all get a little bit more money. I will end with 2 notes. One, it's working. I've been told that there's less litter out there and it's only, not even been a month, so yay. And last, have a safe and healthy and litter-free Memorial Day. Thank you, everybody.